Well, I can't remember all the different goddesses. Okay, something about the goddesses of old Hawaii. Yes, they were revered, of course, or they wouldn't have been goddesses. That's simple. But they all related to, like all the gods and goddesses in Hawaii, they all related to natural phenomena. Okay, so they were present. They were part of the life of the people. Some gods and goddesses came from overseas, which would be called kahiki in Hawaiian. Usual translation today is Tahiti, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Anywhere over the horizon, or from outer space, or from another dimension. Okay, so when they say they came from kahiki in the legend, you have no idea where they came from. Okay? Unless they, mention specific things like Mo'i Keha. That was definitely Tahiti. So we have in my family tradition and what I teach in my courses, we only work with 7 of the goddesses. There were many, many more. Okay? But it was kind of typical and traditional for the shamans to work primarily with the goddesses. But anyway, I'll name the ones that we work with mostly. And there were many variations of these. But we'll start off with Hina, who's the oldest. The oldest of the goddesses, that you find her name and tales about her everywhere in Polynesia, even sometimes in Melanesia and Micronesia. Hina is well known. Hina is an archetypal feminine figure, a figure of beauty, and the related to the moon and related to the tides, the ocean. Okay? She's also notable as a healer, and in Western terms, they would say the patron of tapa cloth making. Okay, so there would be special chants that the tapa cloth makers would chant to Hina, okay, to help them in the making of the cloth. And there's lots and lots of stories about her. Have to tell some of those sometime, but I can't tell all the stories. I won't be able to tell you about all the goddesses. So that's Hina. Then there is Haumea. Haumea is the archetypal earth goddess, similar to Papa, which is another name and another line of the same concept, really having to do with the earthly material aspect of creation. Okay? And Haumea was sometimes called the goddess of 400,000 things. So she's a goddess of abundance. Okay? And the mother of Pele, who comes next. So Haumea is actually the rocks, okay, and that provide the molten lava. Okay, so she's the bones of the earth. But that's her base. She's also the Earth Mother. All right. So then there's Pele. Pele, the volcano goddess. Pele, who is known in the early times as the foreign goddess. Kawahine, Keakua Wahine Haule, the foreign goddess. And the goddess of fire and everything having to do with fire. Fire and lightning and the smoke and the storms that come out of volcanoes but most particularly the molten lava. And all the phenomena associated with volcanic activity. Okay, she was not the hard rocks afterwards. She was the active volcano, and therefore became, if you like, a goddess of passion, which might be sexual passion, which could be anger, but passionate energy. That was Pele. And again, lots and lots of stories of her we will tell from time to time. She came to these islands, according to legend, with her sister, and lots of variations on this story, but her sister is Hi'iaka, which means to carry. She's often associated with the winds. But Hi'iaka Ikapoleo Pele is how she's often called, which means Hi'iaka in the bosom of Pele. Now that's a missionary translation. Literally, poli means armpit. Figuratively, poli means womb. So, knowing Polynesian culture, Hi'iaka may have been her sister and her daughter. Okay. At any rate, because when they were talking about, and the Hawaiians were talking about different aspects of a god or goddess, they would tack on a little epithet, like they did sometimes in the Greek, only so that you might have a dozen Hi'iakas, or 2, 3, 4 dozen Kus. They're all really the same being, but different aspects, okay? And sometimes treated separately. So, that was Hi'iaka. Hi'iaka is notable for 2 primary things. One is that she was taught the hula, according to Big Island tradition. She was taught the hula by a human being, her human friend Hopoi. I love that, because the humans taught the gods something. Now, you don't find that very often in the legends anywhere. Okay? So that's how the hula came into existence according to Big Island, not according to the Molokai stories. But that's a Big Island story. And also, Hi'iaka was the one who went through all kinds of adventures, going from Big Island, sailing, conquering monsters, overcoming evil, finally healing, bringing back the dead, on a big, long voyage, an epic story on behalf of her sister Pele. Then after Hi'iaka, we have, well, again, in our line of doing things, we have Laka that we talked about, goddess of the green growing things, goddess of the forests, goddess of the hula, goddess of love, basically. After Laka comes Kapo. Now, in my family, she was associated with telepathy, clairvoyance, psychic abilities, and she shows a lot of these abilities in her legends. She's also the only one of the main goddesses who has the power to turn herself into an animal. And so she has that association of almost like being a goddess of animals from my family. Then finally there's Uli. And Uli was a goddess of magic, a goddess of human magic, a goddess of the ability to manifest and do magical things. Uli also means dark. And so she was the dark goddess. And some Hawaiians had a bad connotation with darkness, so they considered her bad. Other Hawaiians had a good connotation with darkness, and they considered her good. It's very typical Hawaiian. Okay, you'll always find somebody who thinks differently about anything. But that's why we get so much variety in this culture. So that was Uli, goddess of magic. Kapo too, in a way, and her name, first name, part of her name, means, which is Kapo, means the night, or the dark, or the hidden. Okay, which refers a lot to mental, psychic activity, from my family's viewpoint. So there's the ones that we use the most. My family never worshipped the goddesses. They honored and respected and made friends with them, and the qualities and elements that they represent. Okay, but some of these goddesses had their own temples, their own religions. Temples to Haumea have been found. Temples to Pele still exist. Maybe a very, very long time ago there might have been temples to Hina, but I'm not aware of any. But then there were lots of other goddesses too. Nui Nui, the rainbow goddess. Okay. Nui Nui means rainbow. But also it was personified into a goddess. So there's many more of these.